Again, welcome back to another NERC Compliance Conversation. Dwayne Stratford, NERC Compliance Director here at TRC. And today I'm joined by Brandon Miller. He's been with our team for over a year now, specifically focused on NERC CIP compliance. So I'll let Brandon go ahead and introduce himself.
Sure. Brendan Miller, NERC CIP Compliance Specialist. As Dwayne had started, been with TRC just a little over a year. Started out my career in the United States Navy in cybersecurity, and then transitioned over into a municipal electric corporation where I worked there for several years in compliance in both SCADA administration, working on everything from point-to-point testing, cybersecurity, general operations, and compliance. So.
All right. Appreciate it. So the big thing we want to talk about today is just the misclassification of CIP-2 BES categorization, and most importantly, the impacts of misclassifying your substations or your control centers, what have you. That's one of the big things in the industry is making sure that you properly are categorizing your BES assets. And one of the things that we've seen here in the industry is making sure that at the substations that we properly have those substations classified. One of the things that you've seen in your industry, in the industry overall, what have you found to be one of the easiest ways to keep track of the categorization of the different assets, whether it be in a substation or at a control center?
I think, a lot of utilities are going to lean on that Excel spreadsheet pretty hard. I'm sure there's a number of different ways to do it. I have seen in the past where, you'll have built-in functionality that does, as you input one field, it updates across the board. So if, for example, you update, one asset and that one asset is a medium, then it changes the whole site to a medium. So you don't potentially have anything fall through the cracks in that regard.
Okay. And I think the other thing where, we always talk about connectivity of the NERC CIP standards, right? And if you fail here, what are the downstream impacts of not having your substations or your control centers properly classified or categorized, especially when it comes to going from a low to a medium, or in the construction of a new substation, if it's improperly classified as a low when it should have been a medium. Um, what are some of the downstream impacts of low to medium that folks should be paying attention to when a substation is classified at a higher medium categorization?
And I think, you and I have talked about this before, having that CIP-14, security assessment done initially, even if you think it's going to be a low, I think it's especially important to identify whether that is actually going to be a medium impact and whether, it's going to require ongoing assessments. But, to that point, CIP-2, if you miss, a categorization here, it really does have a massive impact. I mean, you're not just in violation of CIP-2 potentially. You have CIP-4 all the way through, CIP-13 potentially, that you've got standards that weren't necessarily addressed that should have been. Whereas your low impact is primarily just CIP-2 and CIP-3.
Right. And that's CIP-14 assessment. Sometimes there's separation of state and church. Sometimes there's silos that are set up where folks will work on their CIP-14 study and assessment and won't notify outside of that bubble. Can you think of what a successful categorization process looks like? You know what I mean? Because again, it's so critical. It impacts so many other NERC standards, NERC CIP standards in particular down the road. If you miss on this, you really missed the boat on, CIP-2 to 11 and up to 13. But in particular, CIP-2 to 11, you really missed the boat if you misclassify or miscategorize a substation. So what are some of the industry best practices that you've seen or experienced yourself to make sure you keep a good handle on the categorization of substations?
And I think that, having a second line defense, if you have just one person doing your asset inventory and that sort of thing, I think really having, multiple people or even having, somebody else sign in to visually inspect periodically just to make sure that, you're not missing anything that may have been overlooked. For example, like I'll just throw something out there, like an NTP clock, for example. It's really just a piece of hardware. All it does is keep, time on the network. Oftentimes, something like that could be overlooked. But if it physically connects to the system, within your ESP, for that matter, it could potentially be something that could get overlooked. And then again, you have that cascading issue where, that one asset could cause you potentially several violations because it wasn't considered for all the other standards as well.
Right, right. And that's the main thing we always try to harp on is that you want to leverage existing processes and workflows in order to strategically incorporate other NERC compliance checkpoints and action items so that you're not asking folks to do anything additional to what they're already doing, but just to have a focus and to have an education on what else is out there that could impact your CIP-2 categorizations. And I guess lastly, can you think about a time when a misclassification, wrong categorization came up and really bit an organization or one that you've observed from afar?
I don't know that an organization would openly admit to that. But to that point, because it's unfortunate, but sometimes stuff just falls to the cracks, and it like I said, it's not the end of the world. But it's better caught sooner than later. If you have to do, a self-report for something like that, unfortunate, but better caught earlier than later, and that's where you have those multiple lines of defense, whether it be specific procedures that you have in place to make sure that that's occurring on that 15 calendar month reoccurrence, or a lot of utilities tend to do it like yearly. I would imagine for bigger projects, especially maybe larger organizations, maybe they even do it more frequently. I mean, good on you if you do. But again, having that second line of defense, or even third for that matter, is especially valuable.
Okay. Well, again, I get welcome to TRC a year in. And and like I said, we'll have more of these NERC compliance conversations as we move along in the process and further along down the road. But the one thing that I truly think that we've done a good job in doing is just making sure we bring that awareness to the industry and learning from the industry as well, which is what we're all always trying to do. So again, until next time, we'll definitely look forward to getting back in touch with you and sharing more insights, especially from a NERC CIP compliance standpoint. And
Thanks,
thank
Dwayne.